anyone can play esports titles or play games. That's just kind of like a casual gamer. But when you are able to participate in tournaments, in leagues, and all this very professional level of playing, that's when you become an esport athlete.
Companies are actively hiring for roles such as software programmer, game producer, game developer, and project manager, just to name a few examples.
We've talked about sponsorship sales, partnership management, business development even, marketing, content creation. These are jobs you find in any other industry. So these are definitely the same jobs you will find in esports as well. But the more unique ones to esports will be what we've mentioned, the shortcasters, which are basically the same commentators you get in football, the ones who analyze your gameplay and all that. You get that too in esports. It's just a lot more fast-paced and action-paced.
Number one criteria, you must love the game.
Yes.
Right? You must love the game, and they look at that first, look at the passion. I think the rationale they have is that if you love it, you understand it, then you can learn the skills on the job.
Your skill sets to come to esports is pretty much the same as any other industry. Are you passionate enough to want to learn more about all the upcoming titles in esports? I think if you have no passion for esports, it will be very difficult to come in.
Many professional players, when they deteriorate in terms of maybe reflexes, they go on to be coaches or maybe content creators.
A few different ways you can go about this. If you are coming to the diploma hoping to learn about esports ecosystem in general, you can take an esports diploma. There is one that Skoga does in partnership with Informatics Academy. I teach that diploma, so if you're coming, you can talk to me to know more about the diploma as a whole.
Jobs in esports is really beyond just gaming. This is a huge network of ecosystem to support the industry. And all these sound too confusing for you, and if you need help to navigate your career in this industry, do reach out to us and our career coaches, and including Skoga. I think we'll be able to help you chart your career path in esports.
Hey, hi everyone, good evening. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Soffenny, I'm the moderator for this session. A little introduction of myself. I'm actually currently working as a cybersecurity professional in an MNC company. Today I will be volunteering as an AISP Executive Committee member, where I've been providing career talks and advice to students. So firstly, I'd like to thank NTUC UPME for inviting me, as well as the panelists and also organizing such a meaningful panel discussion on job opportunities in growth sector during this COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, there's no doubt that COVID has actually impacted many industries, as well as resulted in high unemployment rate in some. However, in the industry that I'm in, it's quite the opposite. Prior to COVID, we already had talent shortage resulted prior to COVID, as Singapore moves towards a smart nation, and more so during this period where companies shifted their direction to actually work from home. There were also more cyber attacks incidents that happened during this people, where they actually take advantages of people's fear and uncertainty during this pandemic. Just earlier this month, we already had a LinkedIn spear phishing email campaign where it's targeted, where personalized spear phishing emails are created to entice job hunters to click on the fake job offers. This malware exploits job hunters' desperation to find employment in this global pandemic. So I think it's important for us to know how to protect ourselves in this cyber world, and at the same time seize the vast opportunities available in the cybersecurity sector. So we'll be covering three main topics today. First, on the trend and demands in the cybersecurity industry. Second, on the jobs available. And lastly, on how we can enter the cybersecurity industry. So today we are very happy and very honored to have four distinguished guests with us this evening to provide some insights in the emerging sector for our PMETs as well as our online viewers. First up, we have Mr. Melvin Yong, Assistant Secretary General, National Trade Union Congress. And then next we have Ms. Sugar Chan, Senior Consultant at Boston Consulting Group and one of the top 20 women in cybersecurity in Singapore. Next we have Mr. Gaurav Keerthi, Deputy Chief Executive of Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore. And lastly, we have Mr. Johnny Koh, President of Association of Information Security Professionals. So without further ado, let me pass the time to Mr. Melvin for his opening remarks. Mr. Melvin.
Thank you very much, Soffenny. Very good evening to everyone joining us on Zoom and Facebook Live. Welcome to our panel discussion on job opportunities in the cybersecurity industry. We started our series of monthly panel discussions way back in October last year as Singapore began to gradually reopen our economy to highlight job opportunities in sectors that were growing amidst the pandemic. We have spoken about jobs in the healthcare sector, the supply chain industry, and even opportunities in the fast-growing esports space, as you have just seen from the video earlier. This evening's topic is one that was highly sought after by many of you who are interested in finding out more about what it means to be a cybersecurity professional and how you can transition into this sector. Many Singaporeans know the importance of good cybersecurity, particularly after a number of high-profile data breach incidents, which caused cybercrimes to gain national attention. Since then, cybercrimes have continued to rise in Singapore. According to a report by the Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore, cybercrime accounted for almost a fifth of overall crime in Singapore in 2020. So clearly, there's an urgent need for more cybersecurity professionals to join the industry and to enhance the security of our systems and protect our data. But from looking at the questions that you have submitted during registration, I know that many of you want to know the types of roles available in this sector, whether you need to have a coding background to enter, and whether age will be a barrier for you to transition into this industry. To answer all these questions, we have invited four very qualified speakers with us tonight: Mr. Gaurav Keerthi, Mr. Johnny Koh, Ms. Sugar Chan, and even Ms. Soffenny Yap herself. She'll be able to share their insights about the industry and answer all your questions tonight. So let me end my opening here and pass on the time to our experts to share their insights. So back to you, Soffenny.
Thank you, Melvin. So first up, before we start talking about the career opportunities out there, I think it's good that we set some context and then to get a little bit insights into what are some of the current trends and demands in the cybersecurity industry. So may I have Mr. Gaurav, can you tell us a little bit more about what you do, what does CSD do, and in your opinion, looking at the cybersecurity breaches, how do we deal with it, and does the government have the right to get involved in investigation and mitigation?
Thanks, Soffenny. So to paint the context for everyone, I think as Mr. Young has put it, cybersecurity and in fact cyber attacks account for a fifth of crime overall. That's a significant number. We think it's actually going to increase. We think that cyber threats will continue to get worse and worse, and that's why cybersecurity as a profession is an important one. Let me first introduce myself and what my agency does, and then I'll answer some of the questions that Soffenny asked. So I'm Gaurav. I'm the Deputy Chief Executive of the Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore. We're the national authority, and we have a very simple mission. It's to keep our cyberspace safe and secure for all of you. There are three parts to that mission. The first one is national security, so we defend the national security of Singapore. Second part is we enable that digital economy. So all of the clever things that you heard about in terms of job opportunities in the tech sector, that's only possible because they are protected and enabled by a strong base of cybersecurity. And the third part is we enable a digital way of life. To many of us, digital is just a way of doing things, whether it's shopping, watching TV, digital is a part of our life. So being able to protect that is very important. The CSA as an agency has a number of tools at its disposal, and one of the most important ones we have is what we call the Cybersecurity Act. So that's the law. It allows us to stipulate what are the requirements, the standards that we expect for certain types of organizations that own critical information infrastructures, essential services. How should they protect themselves? This act was put in 2018. Most organizations have met most of the requirements, but there's still some way to go for many of them. Cybersecurity is also not static, so the requirements will continue to increase as actors, the threats get worse. And so I personally think that the role of a cybersecurity professional will always be an important one to help organizations adapt, meet these requirements, and go beyond them to protect these important digital investments that the companies have and the users that are on these digital tools.
Can you also share about how individuals and businesses still remains exposed to malicious cyber activities, despite of all these tools, helping?
No, I mean, that's a question I think all of us can comment on, but just to start the ball rolling, when you think about using a tool or using a website or just as a normal person, if you were to give your personal information to a website and that website looks a little bit odd, the form is a bit funny, the website has a bunch of typos, the URL looks strange, you immediately don't trust it. That's a very good instinct to have. The bigger point here is that actually trust is a very important part of our activities online. If you can't trust a website, an e-commerce website, to keep your credit card details safe, if you can't trust a social media website to keep your personal details safe, you'll stop using it. And so the way that we think about all of the breaches that have been happening on Facebook, on Microsoft, these are huge concerns for these organizations. They really want to re-establish trust with the users. How do they do that? They invest heavily in cybersecurity. And so whatever tools we have, that's a good baseline, but it's not the end. And these organizations know that they want to protect their reputation by putting in a lot more effort through cybersecurity to keep that investment safe.
So, Johnny would like to expand a little bit on this. I think we in ASP we do a lot of this kind of advice to our people
Correct.
as well. And
Yes, so I think to restart off, I think as much as what Gaurav said, right, I think a lot of it, if we look at today, I think cybersecurity trends, the old problems never go away. The old threats are always been there. And one of the things we need to really understand, the human factor is actually one important part. Just like we talk about trust, right? One of the things that if you look at it, there is actually this constant driven from interest perspective. So sometimes you would think of it, what interests you the most will actually entice you to sometimes do the unthinkable, like basically go ahead and actually click on something and things like that. Now, of course, the whole digital is also a main driver. So if we look at how threats are actually evolving, it is also driven by the technology trends, how people are really taking up to put, share more of their data, collaborate in that sense, as well as think. But in doing so, actually, it means that you need to get more connected. And when you talk about getting more connected, this whole concept of supply chain comes about. Mainly, it means that while you're connected to your service provider, who else is he connected to? So this whole chain or effect actually means that there is actually a potential risk as you get more connected. But that said, I think that's where I think the assurance comes about as we get more aware, giving that mindset to be wary when we have feeling that things are actually a bit suspicious as well, as an individual as well. Yeah.
So in your experience, Sugar, can we also, I understand that you perform ethical hacking, and what do you think are the common mistakes and issues resulting in successful breaches?
Right. I think in my experience in performing the ethical hacking, I think one of the examples that I can give it's around doing the ethical hacking on an online banking application. I'm not going to name which bank, but I think the common theme observed across some of these vulnerabilities is there's a lack of having the security mentality or the security principles being designed into applications as they are developing it. So in the example that I was mentioning earlier on the online banking application that I was testing, so having the balance between, like, from a design aspects, from a user experience aspect, as well as security principles, if you apply too much security controls on it, it sort of impedes the user experience. If the users feels your application is very hard to use, they are just simply going to turn to another bank. So in this example, they have chosen to make it a lot more user-friendly to the users. So we're talking about the login form itself for the users to access to the online banking application. they make it so intuitive from an application such that if you pop in a wrong username, it tells you that it is a wrong username. If you pop in a username that doesn't exist, it tells you that the username doesn't exist. From a layman perspective, it's good, right? It tells me that I'm popping in the wrong username, I'm popping in a wrong password, that username actually doesn't exist. But if we combined it with a very good security control, such as, like if you have 3 failed login attempts within like the next 30 seconds, your account will be disabled. So we combine that security controls with this vulnerability or a weakness in the application that allows you to actually enumerate a list of legitimate username. I can actually cause a denial of service kind of attack towards this online banking website. So reason being, if I were to put it in a very layman term, I'm able to enumerate a list of legitimate username. So to illustrate the severity of this vulnerability to my friend, which was my colleague back then, so I enumerated his username in that bank. So to demonstrate how severe it is, we went for lunch. And so I volunteered to pay first. And then he was trying to transfer me back the amount that he's supposed to pay me back for the lunch. And then so I just caused the denial of service attack. Simple one, just pop in a wrong password for 3 times. The account got locked. So he couldn't log into the account and pay me for the lunch that we just had. I had to call the bank and reset his account. Subsequently, we went for dinner on the same day. I volunteered to pay for the dinner. And before he get to pay me back, I locked his account again. And that's where a very layman person, without any security background, is able to appreciate like the importance of ensuring like there's a right balance of security design principles as well as user experience is embedded as companies are going about designing the application or even digitizing any of their existing business processes or operations.
That's a very good sharing about your experience on the, all the attacks that happens and
because having dinner with Sugar ends up us not having to pay her back.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the important lesson.
So Melvin, for you, what are your views on cybercrime and how do you think we should actually protect ourselves from these attacks, right?
I think earlier we had a panel discussion, and then we said that when people think about cybercrime, their mental image is mostly about what they see in the movies, right? Where there is a good-looking hacker with fanciful computer gears, furiously typing on the keyboard, trying to gain access to a very secure system blocked by these multiple firewalls. But I think the reality is, as what Sugar had shared earlier, is that hacking is actually very different. And it is about exploiting vulnerabilities in the systems. And unfortunately, most of the time, the most vulnerable person in a system is the user itself, which is each of us, all of us. Whether it is clicking on a link in a suspicious-looking phishing email or perhaps using a USB flash drive that has been infected by malware. Many hackers target users to gain unauthorized access into the computer systems. So the data from the police shows that there has been a spike in cybercrime, and it now accounts for more than 25% of all crimes reported here in Singapore. So in 2020, there were more than 9,400 cybercrime cases reported, and the most common crimes include e-commerce scams, phishing, and malware attacks. Today, cyber criminals have already started to target ordinary devices that uses the Internet of Things. Many consumers are now purchasing smart devices, smart refrigerators, smart home CCTV monitors, and even smart learning devices for their children. Because we are so price conscious, we often go for the cheapest models, not really checking if the device have the necessary security measures. So we may end up with vulnerable devices and risk our personal data being compromised. Right? So such trends are inevitable, but what we can do to protect ourselves is really to stay vigilant and keep ourselves updated regularly on the latest cybercrime. So moving forward, I believe our cybersecurity professionals will probably need to go beyond being technically competent, but also to be able to communicate effectively the risks and the vulnerabilities to end users so that we can strengthen what we call the weakest link. which is probably all of us, the end users.
You know, in like cybersecurity, we always talk about people, process, and technology, and then people is always the weakest link, and then there's always awareness that's required. So I guess it's also very important for our users, our viewers to know that, you know, it's important to be aware yourself so that you can protect yourself in the cyber industry as well. So now we'll close off topic 1, and then we'll move forward to topic 2, the gist of today's agenda on the job opportunities out there. So I'll probably get Mr. Gaurav to share a little bit on what does CSA play in creating all the jobs in the cybersecurity market, and also share about some of the top cybersecurity jobs in demand.
Sure. Thank you so much, Soffenny. This conversation is quite fascinating because if you think about any other industry, let's say cars, when you buy a car, if I tell you the car only has an accelerator, it doesn't have brakes, it doesn't have a safety belt, it doesn't have an airbag, you're probably not going to buy that car. The idea that a car can be sold without safety and security features is unthinkable. But today in the digital world, we're still in the space where you can buy a baby camera that has no security. You can buy devices that don't have the security by design. And so part of the challenge that we're trying to see is how do we do this better as an economy, as a country, as manufacturers, as an industry to protect these devices. And so the job opportunities in cybersecurity in Singapore, we think are going to be tremendous. The Cybersecurity Agency of Singapore has a very strong role to play in developing Singapore to be not just a local cybersecurity industry hub, but global cybersecurity industry hub. And many of the technologies that we're investing in, many of the companies that we see growing in Singapore, many of the regional and global headquarters that we see coming into into our country to set up headquarters, to set up regional headquarters, are really looking to hire strong cybersecurity professionals to build up their base so that they can expand. So the job scope that we think is useful is ones that are technical as well as non-technical, that think about cybersecurity from the people, process, and technologies lens, and are able to convey the importance of cybersecurity not just to users, the way Sugar did, but also to stakeholders in the corporate sector, to stakeholders in the clients, to stakeholders in the B2B market. There's a huge range of opportunities. Maybe we can talk a little bit about the specific jobs though. If you could show the chart. We have a whole range of jobs that are available for cybersecurity professionals. Even domestically, we see organizations like finance, so we've got banks up here, Singtel, a telecommunications company, GovTech, obviously a technology company, Ensign, another technology company focusing on cybersecurity. You can see a broad range. And the idea behind this is that if you are a bank, trust is very important to you. You do not want to be vulnerable to Sugar's kind of denial of dinner attacks. You want to build apps that are customer friendly, but also secure, because the worst thing that could happen is a breach on a financial institution that really deteriorates trust. Telcos, technology companies also care a lot about the security of their infrastructure. So these are just the top hirers, but the roles they're looking for are very diverse. And now, the mental model that many people have when they think about cybersecurity is people with hoodies in dark rooms sitting over laptops coding. I will tell you that firstly, the lights in my room are very bright. While I do have a hoodie in the office, it's primarily because of the air conditioner. It has nothing to do with the professional requirements. And actually, coding is a very small part of what our whole organization does. So the whole industry is not just about coders. There's a range of jobs. Maybe we can show the range of jobs available as well. There we go. So we've got some which are technical in nature, information security specialists, for example, information security engineers. These are individuals who have technical training, either through formal education in polytechnics and universities, or through certification processes, which we can talk about later, and AISP is really heavily involved in this space, where you can upskill yourself along the way. But somebody who's a risk and compliance analyst is not necessarily a technical person. They handle the governance of security. And for them, they're thinking about sometimes common sense things. Don't click those links if they look suspicious, but how do we make sure that we build the processes to make sure that the users in my company are trained, are appropriately educated, are aware, the audits are done properly, etc. It's not a technical role, but it's an important role nonetheless. So you can see there's a variety of roles within the cybersecurity industry, from banking to technology companies to telcos, from technical, which involve coding, to non-technical, which are more audit and compliance space in the space. So there's a huge variety. But maybe I'll pause here and take comments from the rest.
Yeah, I guess it's very good because I think you cover mainly on all the jobs that are out there. But I just want Johnny to cover a little bit on, because there are so many different jobs, right? You mentioned there are one person needs to be technical and non-technical at the same time to give that vast view, for the organization. So I just wanted to ask Johnny a little bit on, what are the difference when it comes to technical and non-technical, and then what are some of the non-technical, roles out there, and then how can one person start off in the industry, to choose the correct path for them.
So maybe when we talk about starting off, right, you really need to start off from somewhere, right? Okay, if we say technical, then you need to start off from a tech role. So if you want to say, well, we talk about cybersecurity jobs specifically as the cybersecurity professional, but there are also jobs where you look at it as an entry where you actually gain cybersecurity skills. That means that cybersecurity awareness and things like that. So I can give a very strong example. I think today when you talk about web developers, you talk about, you want to say, like what Gaurav bring up, IoT, right? I mean, I can even share a story. I mean, as an association, we reach out, we talk to SMEs and things like that. So there are actually cases where, between two companies that's actually building IoT devices, the company who has put on a training and actually having the guys able to articulate what is the security within their product actually stands out. So that itself is also a way of actually differentiating. So not necessarily go, but it becomes part of their job as to actually emphasize the cybersecurity skills that they have as well. Yeah, because when we talk about technical in that sense, technology drives that part. The non-technical part, I think going beyond, you talk about risk and compliance, this is really process. But if you recognize today, it's becoming important if you talk about even the legal profession, even you talk about the comms and the PR. Because today, when you talk about any crisis, crisis management, you really need to be able to have the right statements be made, as well as how are you going to present and what are you going to say to the public. I think these are very important things as part of that cybersecurity role as well within organization.
Yeah, I agree because I belong to the non-technical part there. Thanks for reiterating my job, right? Where, we need to emphasize the business perspective of it and not just the technical, because sometimes technical sounds really too much for the customer to comprehend, and then that's where you probably need a little bit of soft skill in between. And so to you, Melvin, you have been, for those viewers who do not know, right, Melvin actually has been in the police force for 20 years, and then we just wanted to know how has this criminal landscape evolved back then compared to now?
Oh, so now I want to know when is back then. So when I first started out in the police force, I think the detective work was a lot more traditional. Right? We would interview the victims, the witnesses, the suspects, and look through hours and hours of CCTV footages just to find evidence that could lead us to the offender. But today, I believe the police have technologies to help them scan through the CCTV footages and I think to pick out pre-identified targets. And that would save our officers many hours of tiring, what we call eye work, right? So with the spike in cybercrime, I think the police have set up the Anti-Crime Center in addition to their cybercrime capabilities, I think back in June 2019, to investigate scam-related crimes. And its focus is really to disrupt scammers' operations and help mitigate losses for victims. I think in the first year of operations, the Anti-Scam Center received over 8,600 reports, froze over 6,000 bank accounts, and helped victims recover over $21 million. Right, but we all know how the scammers work. Every day the scams itself changes, and their ability to reach out to thousands and millions of people with a push of a button, I think that allows them the reach. So MHA has also set up a new home team science and technology agency to conduct research in areas like biometrics and robotics, and the aim really is to bring together crime fighting capabilities from different home team departments. So I believe beyond traditional police officers, policing work today now involves engineers, researchers, scientists, and cybersecurity professionals. And I think that it is an important inclusion as we continue to enhance how we keep Singapore and Singaporeans safe and secure.
I think it's important. So we have some questions on like ladies, in cyber, and then since Sugar is the only lady here, And then besides me, in your experience, how can female thrive in this cybersecurity industry? And then can you share with us some tips on entering the cybersecurity?
I think in my experience, a lot of the females professionals that I talk to are pretty shy away when it comes to the technical profession for cybersecurity. Like Johnny has kindly highlighted also just now, when it comes to cyber professions, there's non-technical as well as the technical category. And the general observation for female professionals is they kind of shy away from the technical bit. So when I ask them why, first reaction is, there's a lot of guys already, like, I don't think I can compete with them. Then my natural response would be, it's not a matter of like competition, but it's a mutual learning kind of process, a mutual learning kind of journey. So if you decide that you want to go into the technical field of cybersecurity, then why not? I think it's a matter of taking it up as a learning opportunity. And that comes to my second point. Also a lot of like female professions that I generally notice is they want to be super familiar on that topic before they are willing to share their thoughts. Like, I think it's also part and parcel of the female DNA, right? Yeah. So you want to be like meticulous on every single point before you want to step up. So a lot of times when you encounter situations like this, I think if that's the part that you don't feel comfortable with, I would encourage you to even challenge yourself to go and do it. Like, nobody in the world knows everything. It's a matter of being confident on what you know and open to sharing and have that kind of learning attitude. There's a lot of times where even when I have conversations with some of my mentees, a lot of times I'm also encouraging them to do it. There's nothing wrong to highlight that, oh, when it comes to this particular topic, I only know ABC. Or really, there's DEF, I'm happy to hear it from you. Like, would you mind sharing a little bit more? And most of the time, people are actually quite keen to share. So then now it comes to my third point on how women can thrive in the cybersecurity industry, which is to go out there and network and get yourself some mentors. I wouldn't say sponsors, but try to like reach out and talk to the people who are already in this industry. Like from time to time, if I encounter certain like challenges or topics that I'm not very familiar with, you Google on that particular topic, they would already show you who are these industry luminaries when it comes to this particular topic. And when it comes to the current internet landscape, you can easily go to LinkedIn and just send a message to that person. And a lot of times, these people are actually quite willing to share. They are quite willing to help. There was once, if I can share this particular example, is where I was trying to pick up like hardware hacking. So I Googled this individual and he was already like an expert on this particular topic. I just sent him a message in LinkedIn and tell him that this is what I've tried and this is what I see. I'm stuck here, like, can you share with me the next step? And he's very happy to help answer some of these questions. And he was actually not charging me anything for 6 months. He was just giving free advices for 6 months until I went to DEF CON and met him there. So I would encourage again, like for females who's trying to like enter or thrive further or in this particular industry, to really get yourself like a mentor. Go reach out and talk to people. They don't bite. So even from time to time, I've like people randomly reaching out to me, not only from Singapore, like from other parts of the world, like from Europe. And also from like the US. So if they want to hop on a call with me, I'm happy to join them in a call, help answer some of the questions as well. So similarly, I would also like encourage or do the same when I have questions myself.
Can I add a point to what Sugar was saying? Because I fully agree with what she mentioned. One of the advantages of the cybersecurity industry is that actually nobody knows everything. And every time there's a major breach, all of us, even if you think you knew A, B, C, D, E, F, learn that there's a G that we didn't think about, that there's another attack. And so actually as an industry, what I've noticed is that everybody is quite keen to learn, to share, to discuss, to debate, to disagree. And so it doesn't, there is no advantage in pretending that you know it all, because you'll always be surprised by the next attack. And I think that that actually is an advantage for women and all sorts of people who are trying to come into this sector from a position of perhaps inexperience or lack of confidence, because nobody can ever be overconfident in this industry. So it's a good thing for cybersecurity, not just for women, but other minorities, as well as people who may be transiting from another background into cybersecurity.
Just because they have a very different perspective that brings to the table. Actually, I'm just curious, what would be the advantage of a lady in this particular cybersecurity industry? I mean, based on your experience, I was just wondering if Melvin had asked that same guy whether he would give me free advice for 6 months. Right?
I'm not the same guy, so I couldn't really answer on behalf. I say generally, especially when it comes to like the broader topic, diversity and inclusion has become more and more important and is very openly discussed among a lot of these MNCs. So I would say even from landing yourself an interview, not getting a job offer, landing yourself an interview, you have a higher chance, especially when it comes to the cybersecurity industry. And if you were to talk about the more technical aspect of the cyber profession, like being a malware analyst, things like that, these fields have even lesser female professionals. So you would have a lot of opportunities to actually enter some of these fields. If we were to talk about cybersecurity in general, be it the technical and the non-technical professions, I would notice also at the same time there's a lot more opportunities for women to step up, especially if you are talking about like mid-management or the leadership level. Reason being, there's a lack of female talents when it comes to this industry.
So what would be the cohort like? I mean, the female proportion of a particular cohort. Would any of you have
Actually, it
an
reflects
idea?
quite closely the university or the higher education kind of profile, which is generally about 30-70.
Okay.
So if you look at computer science in any of our universities, it's about 30-70.
It's almost an engineering.
Very close.
Industry.
It's starting to shift, and we're starting to see a lot more people take up skills-based training, and that one I think has a real potential to change the demographics, because it's not about what degree you got. I mean, I got a computer science A-level cert, but since then you upskill along the way, and that actually has the opportunity for other people to bring in.
Oh, but in my company, right, the MNC company, actually we have more females, to be honest. We have more females because we needed more,
Communication skills.
Yeah, we needed more communication. So a lot of us are actually from the business background. So, give some confidence to the business student out there. So if you decided to, drop on and come into the cybersecurity industry, we also need a lot of female representative here. And of course, I just want to highlight on, in AISP, we have we have a Ladies in Cyber program where we actually have the female mentoring program where we actually tag students to actually mentor in the industry. And I think this is a very good platform when the students can actually share, learn their experience from a good female leader, role model in the industry itself. So I guess, if the students out there, we are interested, please feel free to join us and then let AISP know as well.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I just want to add on. I think one keyword actually comes to mind is interest.
Yeah.
So I think especially for the cybersecurity, like what Gaurav brought, what pull us together. I mean, if you want to say, even I can give the example to what Sugar encountered. The only reason why probably the connection forms is when you have a common interest. A lot of actually today, as we can see, cybersecurity community actually is formed out of special interest groups, because the interest actually drives that sharing of information, because that is really what breaks the barrier. That special interest that you have common in certain areas, be it from a level of things as technical as cloud, or to specific type of more specialized areas such as even connected cars and stuff like that, actually will drive the people together to actually share and collaborate as well. Yeah.
And in fact, if I could answer Melvin's earlier question whether he would get the same advice if he was not female, I think the answer is yes. Strangely enough, even though the movies present all of the cybersecurity people as very antisocial, they're the most social people ever. They have so many associations. They constantly want to meet and gather and share and learn from each other. It's a very social profession, and I'm a mid-career entrant myself. So actually, I found that it's a very welcoming community. They're very interested in sharing what they've learned, explaining how they managed to get certain exploits. They write long blog articles. So it is a very welcoming and nurturing community.
I have one question from the Zoom. Since we still have some time, maybe you can quickly cover that. One of the viewers actually asked about the difference in the job opportunities between the public as well as the private sector, and are there any difference involved there? So any takers for this question?
Well, I can answer what the public sector jobs look
Yep.
like. So the two major hires in the public sector are GovTech, CSA, and obviously every agency will have a small cybersecurity team within that agency. But the main roles for the government sector are technical, so we develop solutions to protect various solutions that we provide. Many of you use SingPass. Obviously, SingPass needs to be very secure, so we have cybersecurity professionals within GovTech who work on that. And then within CSA, we have people who work on not just technical solutions for national security, but developing the ecosystem. We have people who work with industry, work with talents, and we try to nurture young people to join the industry. So there are a variety of roles within the public sector. Maybe I'll hand over to one of the others for the private sector portion.
Yeah. So, well, if you come from the angle of private sector, I think similarly, I think when we think about those at the top is really where we talk about the more critical, impactful sectors where you talk about the banks and of course telcos. Of course, in today's case, I think when the opportunities are actually getting broader because every company is going digital, and digital is actually synonymous with cyber. So that means it becomes, like I mentioned earlier, as you actually need to pick up cyber skills. Now, of course, as you talk about key roles, you can be that key security officer, you can be that key security administrator just for the company itself. And all these are actually easily available roles. And one of the key things that I see, especially now in the private sector, is head of security actually is a very common position because the leadership in that area is really where it's starting to rise up, especially in the corporate ladder. So you talk about it, they are all actually moving towards the C-level, and it becomes someone really sitting on the board. And that actually rises the whole profile of the cybersecurity career path as well. Yeah.
So now your head of security is not head of physical security, but more head of cybersecurity. I think there's always a question at every panel that we do: how much can I earn as a cybersecurity professional? So maybe you can share a range, or probably at the entrant level, how much can a person expect, and then probably at a more senior level, what is the range of income that one can expect?
Well,
why don't you go ahead and start first now? Add on.
Okay, I think typically I think you want to say for cybersecurity, the entry level actually probably goes up higher because of the demand. So especially for people who you want to say they are actually trained specifically for cybersecurity, and they actually done very well, especially in areas of during their internship with the certain companies. Actually, those tend to drive at higher. I wouldn't really want to give a figure, but I can say it's probably going to be at least 20 to 30% higher than the other average technical jobs as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll go one step further, and I will give a figure. But let me explain what that figure means in context first. Cybersecurity, we've all discussed now, there's technical roles, there's non-technical roles, there's a variety of space in which people can start entry-level jobs, senior-level jobs. What this chart shows is, firstly, as Johnny just mentioned, it's always going to be a little bit higher than median gross wage. So the opportunities in cybersecurity do pay more because there is a little bit of that skill set that's required that's unique. Some of it's technical, some of it is not. But let's say you're a local university degree holder in information security or cybersecurity. You're looking at a starting salary of about 5,000 plus. But I want to caveat this. At the very entry level, if you're just performing an analyst role, if you don't have a degree, you could start lower. But one of the biggest advantages that I've found in the cybersecurity industry is, unlike many of the other professional sectors like medicine or accountancy, this sector is driven by certifications. It's driven by skills upgrading, and there's a fairly robust system of certificates and skills out there that people can acquire. Offensive security, Sugar's probably very familiar with that line of thinking, certified ethical hackers. So you can upskill yourself along the way and leapfrog where you thought you would be. So just because you don't have a degree at the starting doesn't mean that you can't out-earn what other professionals might be earning with a degree. And just to prove the point, even within my own organization, some of my higher paid employees are not the ones with the degrees. They're the ones who have proven themselves both through skills as well as through on-the-job performance. And so I think that the opportunities in cybersecurity, because they are so skills-based, are actually quite different from the normal technical world.
Yeah, since you're on the question on certification, right? So maybe any of you can help to answer this on, what kind of related qualifications are required for, people who wants to join the cybersecurity industry, and then what are some of the courses or skill sets that can help to kickstart their career in this industry?
Yeah. So maybe I'll start with that. So I think as the association, we actually have a mission to advance the professionals, but also actually to reach out to the community. And one of the things I think to really kickstart is still to have an interest. So sometimes that's really getting involved in the community. So example, like for AISP, we actually we open our doors to anyone who has an interest in cybersecurity. You don't have to be a practitioner yet. You just need to, and you can be, I think, participating in our knowledge sharing sessions as well as that. And that is actually part of the journey that we see, because you need to start off being aware of that, because that will build you up as an individual. Then you go into understanding the essentials, and that's like what Gaurav said, that's really going up the skill sets, building on that skill set, the skills framework, and then of course going into certification. So especially for AISP itself, we do actually have a body knowledge that we establish, so that we use that as a way to provide an entry through our QISP program and certification, so that allows for people who are interested in cybersecurity to get into it, and then from there move on to more specialized certifications as well. Really, that's where you go into the deep skills. And then, like what you say, in fact, if you talk about this whole journey, it's probably nothing to do with a degree. It's really driven from a whole interest, getting connected with the community, and of course, building up the skills through various training and certifications as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm a mid-career entrant myself, and my official degree is actually economics. But I did computer science in A-levels. I kept computer science warm as a skill set. And now when I look at hiring people who are developers, I don't ask them, what is your degree? I ask them to show me their GitHub. Right. What code have you worked on? What have you built? Let me see the quality of the code that you wrote. And then you start to think it's all about skills. And I'm sure, and actually I want to ask Sugar this question, because whenever you talk to a cybersecurity professional, on their LinkedIn or on their business card, they have a whole bunch of alphabets at the end of it. And I want to ask Sugar, what is the list of her alphabets? Because it's always exciting to hear this soup of alphabets. But it's an important one, because it means that what we look for in individuals is not what they studied when they were 18, but what they kept studying as they went through their career.
Because what they studied at 18 is no
irrelevant.
longer
It's completely irrelevant.
Okay, to answer Gaurav's point on the certification, so I do have OSCP if you want to enter the ethical hacking industry, which is the Offensive Security Certified Professional. But of course in Singapore, based on the Cybersecurity Act, you need to have CREST certified as well. So I do have CRT. So for the industrial operational technology side of things, I have GICSP. To elevate the conversation so that a more layman or a senior executive can understand, I have CRIS, I have CISM.
But it's an important one. It means that if I'm an employer looking at her, I will know that she's continuously kept herself relevant, she's upgraded her skills, and I'm not even going to care what degree she did. She could have studied literature and finance, but she's kept herself very relevant and very employable.
Yeah, I agree. I guess this is also the reason, to get yourself hired into the industry. And I guess, I think we have viewers asking, for the mid-career switch, right? Is there any age limit, or is there any time? Because you mentioned about skill set and all, but I guess to stay abreast, and then, and in this industry, it's very vibrant and dynamic, and then we really see more, younger, applicants in it. And then how can the older generation, right, people enter into the industry?
Basically, is there an age limit to where people can switch to the cybersecurity industry?
So I don't know if age as a number makes any sense. It's about what is your willingness to learn. If you're 62 and willing to learn, then learn. The opportunities are out there. Each of these courses is what, a week? Maybe some are 2 weeks, some of the more complex ones. If you can afford 2 weeks of time and you're willing to learn, then I think that's what matters the most. And we hire people with aeronautical engineering degrees, mechanical engineering degrees. It doesn't really matter anymore. But I must say that these courses are quite intense. It does require you to pay attention, read the notes, study, practice on your own, practice. And if you're prepared to do all of that, then I don't think whether you're 50 or 60 matters.
Agree also. And we have also viewers asking, on the course that Johnny just now mentioned on the QISP course, is there any cost to it? Like how much is the certification? Is it free? I believe it's free. I believe it's free.
No, it's not free, but I don't think I want to be advertising that.
I thought it was free.
But I mean, that's something we could actually share more, I think, if you have interest. But I think the other thing I wanted to bring up was more on the age thing. In fact, sometimes if you look at amazingly, I think firstly, like what we said, you need to be driven by interest. You really want to get into understanding more. Amazingly, actually, if you're above 40, the skills framework actually gives you more subsidies. In fact, you are actually even at an advantage to actually pick up more training, because I have staff that's over 40, and sometimes they actually went through certain career break, and through that career break, they actually spend time taking up cloud certifications and things like making themselves relevant. So actually, age is not an issue. Actually, sometimes in our case, I think in Singapore, the skills framework that we have actually, support you as well if you are actually really interested in actually learning as well.
Yeah, Sugar, so how do we have viewers to ask, how do they know, how do they get themselves a chance to land in an interview? So for you, maybe you can share on, how can one person know whether, how can they get themselves to the interview? How do they know who is hiring in the industry?
I think like Johnny has also mentioned previously, there are so many platforms, there's so many associations out there. The easiest way is to really network with the people who is already in the industry, talk to them. You would know whether these organizations are hiring before those job postings are even shown on LinkedIn or shown on any of their website. So by having a conversation with them, it's also easier that they can directly share your CV or share your contact with the hiring manager or with the HR itself. That's the easiest way, I would say, to land yourself an interview opportunity.
Someone said to me in jest that the fastest way is to hack into their system and get an interview.
That would be quite impressive.
But I don't think Gaurav would.
As the national authority, I strongly discourage that approach. But I will add this. Informally, the best way to know which companies are hiring is to see which ones just got breached. So if that company appeared in the Straits Times for having a breach, you're pretty sure they're going to be hiring in the next few weeks.
And Melvin, last question. How is NTUC playing a role in supporting the PMET's transit into the cybersecurity industry?
Yeah, I think this also will address the many questions about cost, right? So at NTUC, we know that the cybersecurity industry is growing exponentially, and companies have highlighted to us the persistent shortage of good talents, good local talents. So to help Singaporeans transit into the cybersecurity sector, we have been working very closely with the professional associations, including AISP and many others, to help defray the training costs to enter into this sector. So one of our key initiatives is the Union Training Assistance Program, or UTAP for short. So UTAP provides NTUC members with up to $500 a year to offset the cost of going for approved training programs. And this is above and beyond what the government helps to fund many of these courses that are already out there. So those interested to join the cybersecurity industry can also approach our NTUC UPME Center, where we have experienced career coaches to help you identify training gaps and suggest the relevant training courses for you to plug those gaps so that your job application will have a higher chance of success. The UPME Center partners with various executive headhunting firms, including those with attractive technology and cybersecurity related job vacancies. So if you are interested to join the cybersecurity field, I strongly encourage you to approach our UPME Center so that we can assist you.
Great. So we have come to almost the end, but before we end, I have the one round-up question for our panelists. What word of advice will you actually give our viewers who aspire to work in this industry? Maybe we start from Sugar?
Okay, sure. I think I would encourage everyone to, like I mentioned earlier, the easiest way for you to find out whether a company is hiring or not is to network with people who are already in the industry, right? But at the same time, you talk to them. They'll be asking you why? What have you done to learn more about this industry? What do you what makes you gotta convince me you are the right fit for this particular job role? So you gotta also prepare your 5-minute elevated pitch. What have you done? Share some sort of interesting hobbies. Well, weekend I like to code this. I hacked this box or that box. Whichever that sounds interesting, that will be a fit for that particular role. So that's very important. But if you're applying at the same time for a non-technical role, then you sort of need to demonstrate the ability to straddle the conversation between the technical side and the non-technical side, such that that conversation can bridge. The person, a senior executive, would be able to appreciate what you're trying to say. At the same time, the technical folks will also appreciate that you understand the limitation that this can't be fixed. That's a issue that they need to try to bug fixes, things like that.
Any last word?
Yeah. It's so there's so much to say. So I think that if you're talking about entering the sector, there's so many schemes available. NTUC has some, CSA has a few. I encourage you to go and look through all of the schemes that are available to the associations as well. But in terms of kind of closing thoughts about working in this industry, maybe I can share my own personal experience and how I essentially just tripped and fell and landed up in cybersecurity. So I don't have a cybersecurity background. Computer science was something I was very passionate about. But in the course of a specific project that I had in my previous job, I had to look at protecting a particular system. There were some attacks on it. And in order to protect the system, I just Googled. I watched YouTube videos, I read a bunch of things online, and I protected that system from a very significant attack. Eventually, people realized that I was relatively good at this and asked me to come out. But the lesson that I learned from that is that cybersecurity professionals are not the kind of straight-laced, dry, technical experts that you'd expect them to be. The good cybersecurity professionals are good at their job. They follow the rules. They build good systems. They protect their networks. The best cybersecurity professionals actually have a little bit of a naughty streak in them. They think like how an attacker would think. They think like how the bad guys would think, and they have good values, good ethics, so they can turn that around and defend the system, which is why one of the most popular certificates is called Certified Ethical Hacker. It's all about ethics. So if I could kind of summarize my reflections having been in cybersecurity for a little while now, it's that the technical skills are important, the non-technical skills add value, but what's really at the core of cybersecurity is you have to care about this space, you have to care about the mission of your company, of the organization that you're working for, such that you want to protect it, you want to defend it, and the way in which you do it actually is quite a fun way. I've enjoyed being part of this sector quite tremendously. The people that I talk to, the people that I interact with are very unusual, very different, all come from very diverse backgrounds. And I think the cybersecurity profession as a whole is a very fun place to be, and it's growing. There are tremendous opportunities in Singapore.
Yep, I never regretted joining the industry 6 years ago with no cybersecurity background, and yet I'm still surviving and doing well in the industry. So we have come to the end of today's session. So thanks for all the insightful sharing to all our panelists. I guess our viewers are definitely I hope the viewers all get very good insights into what happens in the cybersecurity industry. So maybe now let me pass this to Melvin for his closing remarks.
So thank you very much, Soffenny. This has been a very interesting and insightful discussion into the various job opportunities available within the vast cybersecurity industry. I'd like to thank everyone on Zoom and Facebook for attending tonight's session, and special thanks to those who have participated actively with your questions for our panelists. I know that there were many questions that we did not get to answer as we ran out of time. I encourage you to write to us, and my team will engage our panelists to find out the answers to your questions and get back to you. Tonight's panel discussion has highlighted how the rising threat of new cybersecurity vulnerabilities and attacks bring with it exciting new opportunities for the industry. Some reports suggest that by the year 2024, the global cybersecurity industry will grow to an estimated worth of more than $300 billion. However, cybersecurity jobs are not limited by a country's borders, and companies can easily hire cyber professionals from anywhere in the world. All we need is an internet connection. So it is important for those seeking to enter the industry to have the right knowledge, the latest skill sets to stand out from the crowd, and the passion to continually want to learn new knowledge and new skills. So to conclude, I'd like to thank our speakers, Mr. Gaurav Keerthi, Mr. Johnny Koh, and Ms. Sugar Chan for sharing your valuable insights with our audience this evening. I'd like to thank also Ms. Soffenny Yap for your excellent job in keeping tonight's session flowing smoothly and keeping us all on time. I hope to see all of you again next month as we continue to discuss job opportunities amidst the pandemic. If you have any areas of interest that you would like us to gather industry experts to talk about, do let us know and we will try our best to bring them here for you. So with that, we have come to the end of tonight's session. Thank you and good night.